This week in Louisiana agriculture.
A change in federal labor laws could put Louisiana sugar farmers in a big bind this harvest season. I'm Kristen Oakes, and I'll tell you how up next.
And flooding from the Mississippi River prompts disaster declarations for 6 Louisiana parishes.
I'm Avery Davidson in St. Martin Parish, where I'm surrounded by rice ready to harvest. But how has the season been? I'll have that story coming up.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael Dana. Thanks so much for joining us. Last year, Louisiana employers hired more than 14,000 guest workers. Most of those 14,000 filled farm-related jobs. Louisiana farmers depend heavily on immigrant workers to get their products from the field to your plate. But now, a federal dispute over wage increases could postpone those migrant workers getting the necessary paperwork they need, and as a result, could delay their arrival across Louisiana's farms and ranches. As This Week in Louisiana Agriculture's Kristen Oakes explains, the wage dispute could put Louisiana sugar farmers in a bind this harvest season.
Behind this smoke and steam lies an artist at work. Using vapor, heat, and pressure, he transforms this shredded cane into a masterpiece, a perfect crystal of sugar. Every October, hundreds of experienced sugar boilers travel to the United States from Central America as H-2B guest workers in Louisiana sugar mills. But a federal wage change could delay those workers' visa applications and leave these sugar mills without a workforce this harvest.
Our H-2B workers that are coming in as sugar boilers have not arrived yet, and their applications were some of the applications that were caught in the process of having to go through a supplemental wage determination. And so we're not sure if that is going to create a delay. We could have a situation where our sugar boilers don't arrive on time, and it could even delay the start of the sugarcane harvest.
Brian Bro, Louisiana Farm Bureau commodity specialist, said H-2B workers include temporary immigrants with a unique skill such as sugar boilers, seafood peelers, or candy makers.
We're the 5th largest user of H-2B labor. Pretty well spells that in our state we don't have a lot of available labor resources. That's why we're being forced to bring people in under visas.
The Department of Labor enacted a federal rule to increase the wage rates for H-2B workers starting September 30th.
And we're seeing many folks work that, they're going up $5, $6 an hour.
And that change could delay the visa process.
And when you look at the H-2B process, it takes a period of time between processing and when you are allowed to get those workers in.
LDAF Commissioner Dr. Mike Strain said these workers are crucial to the state's ag industries, especially to sugar production.
We need those workers, those skilled workers, to plant cane. They also are the ones that actually cook the sugar. But they do jobs that are not filled by American workers. But the critical part is, if you look at the sugarcane industry, we produce 40% of the nation's sugar here in Louisiana. That's $850 million directly in the cane business.
Sugarcane's even more severe because they don't have dual markets to sell their sugar. If we can't get our sugar processed at the factory, if the factory doesn't operate, we have absolutely no market for the sugarcane.
No sugar market for farmers means consumers could see less product on the shelf and pay more at the checkout. In Baton Rouge, I'm Kristen Oakes for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Now, Commissioner of Agriculture and Forestry Dr. Mike Strain said he'd like to implement a 5-year pre-processing system program for regular workers. He says those are the same workers who year after year show up at the same farm or ranch. Strain said pre-processing those workers would allow them to continue to fill job vacancies without a lot of costly and unnecessary delays. Limiting the number of migrant workers eligible to work on Louisiana's farms and ranches could have its biggest impact on the state's largest row crop industry, sugarcane. This Week in Louisiana Agriculture's Avery Davidson is standing by with the General Manager of the American Sugarcane League with the very latest. Avery?
Mike, as you just heard in Kristen's story, there are major changes coming to the H-2B program which could impact Louisiana. One of the industries which will be impacted the most is the sugarcane industry, which is why Jim Seamaw from the American Sugarcane League, the General Manager with the American Sugarcane League, is with us. Jim, tell me a little bit about how this could affect the sugarcane industry and what are your concerns?
Well, we rely on these immigrant workers, both H-2A and H-2B workers, to come in and provide temporary work for us. The jobs that they fill are jobs that we can't get locals to do for a 90-day period. Some very important jobs for us. One of them is sugar boilers in our facilities, in the mills, the 11 sugar mills that we have. These boilers come in and actually boil the sugar to crystallize it. And it's more of an artisan type form than an actual science. So we have to bring these folks in that have lots of experience, a kind of journeymen that follow the sugar industry around the world providing these services.
And if things happen so that you can't get these boilers in time for harvest, what could that do to our industry?
Yeah, well, it would potentially delay the startup. We'd have to figure out some kind of makeshift arrangement to do it, but it has the potential to really impact us. I mean, there's not any other source to do anything else with cane but boil it down and make sugar with it. And so any delays affects quality over time and those kinds of things. So it's very important that we get these workers in on a timely fashion.
And the boiler is probably the most important person at the mill, because if you send it out from the mill and it's not the quality, say, Domino wants, what could happen?
That's correct. I mean, you know, the boiling process is crucial. A lot of the other processes in the mill are not as skilled as boiling. And so without those boilers, it just backs up the whole process and really creates some problems for us.
One of the things Kristen brought up in her story was about the wage changes. How is that going to affect the sugar industry as well? Because from what I understand, it could double it from $8 to $16.
That's correct. When you bring these workers in, you have to make sure that you're paying them what's called the prevailing wage. And these wages are determined by different arrangements with the federal government and immigration services. And there are some provisions right now that are actually increasing and doubling prevailing wages, as you discussed. And there are problems with that program, and we're concerned about it. In addition to getting folks in, if we get them in, it could substantially increase the cost to our millers and our growers also.
Well, what are you, as the general manager of the American Sugarcane League, doing to work with the federal government and work with the labor folks to get this rectified?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that efforts that we have underway, working with immigration, working with Louisiana's congressional delegation, and with folks in Washington to try to solve some of these issues. The problem is that these immigration issues are much bigger than just H2A and H2B. You get drawn in to complete immigration reform and that kind of stuff. So it's very difficult to solve this one problem without addressing total immigration reform. So it's a very tricky issue for us, and we're trying to figure out ways to manipulate around all of that, but it's very, very difficult.
It's always tricky when agriculture and politics sort of have to meet, especially something as politically charged as immigration.
Correct, and it's just not sugar. It's a broader issue for a number of industries, seafood processors and crawfish farmers, crawfish processors, rice millers. So it's a big issue that gets pretty broad across the whole U.S. and not just isolated to Louisiana.
Well, Jim, we're glad that you're fighting for the sugar industry. He is Jim Seymour, the general manager of the American Sugarcane League. So, Mike, obviously the sugar industry, the largest row crop industry here in Louisiana, could be most affected. We'll keep you updated on what's happening with the H2B program. Back to you.
Avery Davidson, thanks. Well, 6 Louisiana parishes have been designated disaster areas in the aftermath of this year's spring flooding. That's according to the USDA. Louisiana Commissioner of Agriculture and Forestry Dr. Mike Strain says those parishes are Concordia, East Carroll, Madison, Tensas, and East and West Feliciana. Strain says that designation makes farmers and ranchers in those parishes eligible for emergency loans from the Farm Service Agency and for payments through the Supplemental Revenue Assistance Payments, or SURE program. To find out more information, you can contact your local Farm Service Agency office. And speaking of the SURE program, that's just one of 4 agricultural assistance programs set to expire on September 30th. That's according to FSA State Director Willie Cooper. Cooper says the other programs included in the 2008 Farm Bill set to expire are the Livestock Forage Program, the Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, and Farm Raised Fish Program, or ELAP, and the Tree Assistance Program as well. Cooper says unless Congress acts soon, some Louisiana farmers could be left with little to no disaster assistance at all.
Now you can file for benefits after that, but it won't recognize any occurrence after September 30th.
Now, Willie Cooper says a worst-case scenario would be if a hurricane were to strike Louisiana after September 30th. Those programs would not be available to the state's farmers and ranchers. Well, it is harvest time for Louisiana rice farmers. The Louisiana rice industry contributes more than $500 million a year to the state's economy. As This Week in Louisiana Agriculture's Avery Davidson shows us, the hot, dry start to the season is presenting some unusual challenges for the state's rice growers.
Yeah, this rice is ripe.
Rice farmer Jeff Durand should know when rice is ready for harvest. He's been farming this land in St. Martin Parish for about 30 years.
2009 was a good year for us. 2010 wasn't quite as good. So so far it looks like we're doing better than 2010.
Jeff's brother CJ has the proof it's better. As he drives the combine, the bin fills with about 60 barrels of rice per acre. The Durands need that kind of yield to cover their costs.
Seeds going up, chemicals have gone up. With the fuel being higher, our crop dust is even costing us more money because we have a fuel surcharge. Everything's costing more. So our expenses are up probably 15 to 20% this year over last year.
Durand says drought conditions during the growing season also cost him money and time.
You know, one of us has to stay on the farm constantly, checking levees and opening pipes and just moving the water from one cut to the next. So we spent a lot of time this summer running around the field and moving water around.
In other parts of the state, the drought brought other problems.
We had a lot of early season pest problems because of the drought, because of the fact that there were not other things for those insects to feed on. And we also had a lot of really strange problems which took a while really to figure out. In some cases it took us a couple weeks to actually try to problem solve, catch the culprits in the act.
Entomologist Dr. Natalie Hummel with the LSU Ag Center says this growing season also saw a new rice pest move into Louisiana, the Mexican rice borer.
The Ag Center has fortunately been doing research on this pest for a number of years, working with people in Texas as it's been moving into the state. So we're developing management recommendations and a plan that we can use to deal with this pest.
By rolling the stubble down, we're trying and get all the plants to come up evenly.
Back in Durand's field, he's looking at all of the new green shoots which will make up his second or ratoon crop. Now, Durand doesn't just grow this hardy hybrid variety of rice. He says for the last couple of years, he's been growing Jasmine rice. That's the aromatic rice developed by the LSU Ag Center. Durand says he gets about $5 more per barrel for Jasmine rice. He hopes that it can help Louisiana become a bigger player in the aromatic rice market.
Close to 20% of what's consumed in the United States is imported, and the majority of that is Thai jasmine. And you know, it's a variety we can grow here in South Louisiana, and we are growing it now. So hopefully it's a market we can recapture and be able to get a premium for our rice from these varieties.
And Durand also hopes what he grows here ends up on your table. In St. Martin Parish, I'm Avery Davidson for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Dr. Natalie Hummel says she's planning a rice pest seminar for September 14th at the Crowley Rice Research Station. To learn more about the seminar and about rice pests, you can visit our website at twilatv.org. Louisiana rice growers have grown their influence in Washington as well. John Owen, a rice farmer from Rayville, has been elected vice chairman of the USA Rice Producers Group, the national legislative and regulatory advocate for rice farmers. Owen, who sits on the Northeast Louisiana Rice Growers Association board, will serve a 2-year term in his new post. Louisiana Farm Bureau Associate Commodity Director Kyle McCann says Owen will be a strong advocate for the state's rice farmers.
He's been very involved as a volunteer leader for quite some time. He knows the industry inside and out, very knowledgeable person, and stays up on the issues and been very involved in a lot of the issues that are most important to growers as we go into this farm bill debate.
Now, 12 other Louisiana rice farmers were also elected to serve on the USA Rice Producers Group Board of Directors. Louisiana high school seniors can get up to $4,000 for college just by promoting rice. The annual USA Rice Federation National Rice Month Scholarship, sponsored by Dow AgroSciences, is available to students who conduct rice-themed promotions in their community during the month of September. The USA Rice Federation must receive those entries by October 14th. The second place winner will receive a $3,000 scholarship. Third place gets a $1,500 scholarship, and you can find out more about the program by visiting our website, twilatv.org. Still to come on This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, a sweet ag minute for you, and
I'm A.J. Sabine in New Orleans, and I'll show you how 4-H'ers are promoting Louisiana seafood during the Great American Seafood Cook-Off.
If you live in Louisiana, you know the flavor of fresh Gulf seafood is hard to beat. But for 6 teams of 4-H'ers vying for the title of King of Seafood, beating the competition was the key ingredient for the Great American Seafood Cook-Off. As This Week in Louisiana Agriculture's A.J. Sabine shows us, New Orleans, a city known for its food, was the perfect backdrop for the culinary contest that promoted fresh Louisiana seafood.
Knife, camera, action. Welcome to the Great American Seafood Cook-Off 4-H edition. 6 teams of 4-H'ers from 4 states have brought their A-game to the New Orleans Convention Center for a seafood throwdown. The teams compete for a little cash, some bragging rights, and a chance to put Gulf Coast seafood back on the map. This cook-off is all about passion, says contest director Quincy Cheek.
These kids are passionate about culinary arts, and they do understand that in each of their states, seafood is just a wonderful industry that provides so much for their states.
Each team has an hour to prepare a seafood dish and then present their dishes to the judges. Then the teams must explain to the judges how the commodity impacts their respective states' economy. Rapides Parish team Allison Hall and Rebecca Beers say preparing their crawfish bundles recipe came with a few challenges.
There was more pressure because there was a lot more people watching us. The judges did not come walk around and talk to us this time like they did last time. That's definitely a lot less pressure on us there.
The big screens that they have, your parents can watch you. It's just a whole lot more pressure.
Experience helped South Carolina team member Abrea Lewis finish off her team's Low Country shrimp and grits recipe with time to spare. The grits have been plated up, and now it all comes down to what the judges think.
I'm enjoying myself 100%, and I think we did a great job, so we're just waiting until 3, I guess.
After all of the chopping, grating, and simmering, it all came down to flavor. For the judges, including Louisiana Commissioner of Ag and Forestry Dr. Mike Strain, it wasn't easy to pick a favorite. But in the end, it was Mississippi's crab meat Benedictine that anchored a team that reigned supreme.
And for our first place winners, please give it up for Mississippi, Jackson.
Team Mississippi's Sarah Soares from Ocean Springs says her team was thrilled.
We worked really hard this summer, every Wednesday for 8 weeks, and then the first 3 days of school. It's been, a long road, a lot of recipes, a lot of, trying things, seeing how it tastes, how it is, and today was just amazing.
Team Vermilion Parish came in a strong second, and Team Arkansas rounded out the top 3. In New Orleans, I'm A.J. Sabine for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
4-H'ers from Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and South Carolina competed for the title of 4-H King of Seafood. If you'd like to see some photos from the cook-off, you can log on to our website, twilatv.org, and we'll link you there. Well, as we heard earlier, Louisiana produces 40% of the nation's sugar, and it's the #1 row crop here in the state. Kristen Oakes now joins us with this week's installment of the Ag Minute. And Kristen, you're going to give us a little bit of the history of the state's sweetest crop.
Well, Mike, this year's sugar crop is promising some rich rewards. And as sugar prices continue to rise, more and more Louisiana farmers turn to the crop for a sweet return. In the Delta region, farmers say their white gold is cotton. But ask any farmer here in South Louisiana, and they'll tell you theirs is sweet sugarcane. 510 farms across 23 parishes produce sugar here in Louisiana. Last year's total crop value reached more than $800 million, with a total economic impact of $2.2 billion. Louisiana is the oldest and most historic of the sugar-producing states. Sugarcane arrived here in Louisiana with the Jesuit priest in 1751, who planted it near their church in New Orleans. People originally chewed sugarcane raw to extract the sweetness, and sugar remained relatively unimportant until the Native Americans discovered a way to turn sugarcane juice into granulated crystals, much like we eat today. Pure sugar is 100% natural, and one packet only contains 16 calories. So help out a Louisiana sugar farmer and tear open a pack today. Now, few people know that sugar is actually brain food. Sugar and other carbohydrates convert to blood glucose, which is a fundamental fuel for your brain. Now, who knew that something that tasted so good could be good for your brain too?
Now on to this week's TWILA Trivia. Last time I asked you, what is the world's most popular meat for consumption? And this one actually stumped most of you guys at home. The world's most popular meat is C, goat, not chicken. For this week's question, during World War II, how many ounces of sugar could Americans buy per week due to rationing? Was it A, 1 ounce, B, 4 ounces, or C, 10 ounces? Simply log on to our website, twilatv.org, submit your answer, and we'll send one correct entry a new TWILA prize pack with some sweet new goodies like this coffee travel mug that you can use for your coffee and sugar. Stay tuned, we still have a lot more to come on This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
With the stock market down, will your grocery bill come down as well? Find out on The Bottom Line up next.
The USDA recently awarded $87,000 in grants to 2 LSU Ag Center researchers. Agribusiness Associate Professor Matt Fannin received nearly $57,000 for investigating the economics of cotton transportation from the fields to the gin. Meanwhile, Ag Center Communications Professor Pam Hodson received $30,000 from the USDA to survey school lunch directors to determine the demand for locally produced food. The USDA is using these grants to encourage research and improvements to the marketing of many agricultural products. Well, with Wall Street swinging wildly in the wake of the debt debate, the grain markets have seen some seesawing as well. Joining us now with this week's Bottom Line is Neil Melanson. And Neil, we were talking earlier, we're not sure why the grain markets, some of them at least, are doing what they're doing, but what's going on out there right now?
Well, of course, Mike, the grain markets had a seesaw week themselves, swinging back and forth on not only the outside markets, but the USDA report released on Thursday. The two forces, though, really driving the markets right now are oil prices and the weather. Now, the oil markets went the way of the stock market, up when it was up and down when it was down, with the overall trend being negative. Now, this has had a negative effect on grain prices, as weaker oil means a stronger U.S. dollar, which makes our crops more expensive in overseas markets. Overshadowing all of this, of course, is the weather, which has been in the back of traders' minds for quite some time now. As harvest gets closer, there's more and more evidence that despite good-looking crops on the outside, corn husks are empty on the inside and bean pods aren't where they should be for mid-August. Of course, we still won't know the actual harvest data until it comes in, but chances are we won't have the record crops we need to fulfill all of the expected demand. The bottom line to consumers is the prices for food are just like prices for gas. You saw how oil prices have been lower overall, but gas at the pump has only edged lower slightly. It's the same thing for food, sticky prices. Even if we did see significantly lower prices for the grain commodities, it would still be a while before we see it affect food. And frankly, Mike, I don't see lower prices for either the ag commodities or your groceries anytime before next year.
Neil Melanson, no doubt, still a long way to go through this long summer. Thanks. And remember, you can listen to any of Neil's reports on the Louisiana Farm Bureau Radio Network. For a list of stations where you can tune in or listen online, click on over to our website, twilatv.org, and click on the link LFB Radio on the left side of the homepage. That does it for this edition of This Week in Louisiana Agriculture. Be sure to join us next week when we'll head back into Holly Clegg's Trim and Terrific Kitchen, where Holly and AJ are using those delicious Louisiana products to make a dish that's sure to please. Until then, you can watch any of our stories online. You know the address, twilatv.org. For all of us here at This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm Michael Dana. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Hope to see you again right here next week.